Hi. One of the challenges when you are capturing data from articles for a systematic review and meta-analysis is when you come across a modeling study. And what I mean by that is, not their standard randomized control trial where you have, 2 arms or 3 arms or whatever it is, and then you have pretty clear outcomes, or even say a cohort study. We have, your separate cohorts, and then you have your outcomes all clearly set up. In a modeling study, we come at it a bit differently, and let me show you what I mean. In this study, what the authors are doing is modeling new onset of constructive or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, asthma, and interstitial lung disease. So I have a fourth one. I'm not interested in that because we are interested in respiratory diseases. So one of the things that you'll notice is that even though chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, is an outcome, what happens is I've got all of these categorical variables which have been used, and I'll go down to the table down here, all of these variables that have been used to generate odds ratios compared to the reference group. So for instance, compared to soldiers who are under 30, what's the odds of a soldier in the 31 to 40 odds ratio of getting a COPD? The same thing for 41 to 50, the same thing for 51, although they messed up the margin here. It's over here. But you see, I need to capture all of these different odds ratios. The problem is, how do we set up the arms for that? Well, I want to show you how to do that. So I use Systematic Review Data Repository, or SRDR, which is supported by the U.S. Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality. It's a free systematic review creation as well as a dissemination platform. There are other platforms out there, but I'm going to go ahead and show you how I would set this up here, and I think it will apply in other platforms as well. But one of the things you notice, the challenge is going to be the arms and the outcomes. We need to be able to set those up correctly. You'll notice here that I have actually used my outcomes as arms. Now this may seem odd to you, but you'll see why I did this in just a minute. By setting up the separate arms, I'm going to be able to capture the odds ratios for the different variables under COPD, asthma, and ILD. In quite a tidy way. Now, let's go back to outcomes. All right. So there we go. Now, you'll notice that what I have done here is set up each one of the variables in my model as that I have here. Okay. I've set them up as outcomes. Again, this is kind of backwards or upside down, but I want you to notice, you'll see why I did this. Because for age, I actually need to capture 3 separate odds ratios, all compared to soldiers under 30. For race, I need to compare or capture 4 odds ratios compared to white. And so you can see how I've set this up. Now, let me go ahead and show you how I've done it, and I'll jump into here. I've set this as continuous, and that's because I want to be able to capture both the odds ratio as well as, you'll notice over here, the confidence interval for the odds ratio. And when I've named it, I don't just name it age. What I have also done is I have I've specified what the reference category is, because the odds ratios only make sense with reference to that reference category. So I have my folks over 51, my folks over or between 31 and 40, my folks between 41 and 50. Now, I only have one time point because, again, this is a modeling study, so it was just the comparisons are taking place at one point in time, so I can just leave this as baseline. And once I have set it up this way, let me show you what it allows me to do. All right, so we'll get back, and it will load, and there we're going to hop down to results. And under results, I want to show you what I've been able to do. And I'll show you age first, okay, and explain what's going on here. So I've captured this, and what I've done is I've edited the measures. Okay, so normally it would have mean, standard deviation, etc. What I've just done is I've added new measures, the adjusted odds ratio, because in this article they did adjust for the different things in the model, and then the high and the low confidence interval. So let me go ahead and cancel out of there. You can see how I set that up by editing. Now I've got 3 spaces where I can capture my odds ratios and my confidence intervals. And you'll notice, because I've defined the populations, I've got 51 and plus compared to under 30. I've got the 30 to 40, and then I've got the 40 to 50. Now, if I was being really tidy, I would have put those in order, but I didn't. So let's go back in. You can see here, I've just captured all of those, all right? And I would just keep doing that for each one of the variables. And now I set up year a little different. And the reason I did this, I set it up as a categorical variable, precisely because, I mean, again, you can always, change this, the measures that you want. But I actually kind of built this out so that I could capture not just the adjusted odds ratio, but also the author's report. And this is, compared to 2011. What I did was wanted to capture, and you'll see it up here. They also report the average increase in the log odds for the different yearly log odds for each one of my outcomes. And so I'm actually wanting to capture kind of 2 outcomes at the same time there. And you can see that's what I did. So I have the adjusted odds ratios from the table, and then I also have the 9-year increase in logs, and then I have my total N. And so I was able to capture all of that information for all 3 outcomes. So the point here being, when you're doing modeling studies, sometimes it's going to help you to actually define your say different models, my model for COPD, my model for asthma, my model for interstitial lung disease, as outcomes, and then set up all of my predictor variables as these would be my outcomes, and you can see how I've set those up. So if you set it up that way, then what you'll do when you do a data dump, you'll have all the data you need, clean it up a little bit, and then you'll be ready for your systematic to do your meta-analyses.